Hey guys, I'm going to show you how to use Mastercam's 3D surfacing toolpaths. Welcome back everyone. So to load this part, I'm just going to click on my file and drag it onto my viewpoint here. Now, I don't have any geometry set, so I want to add some chains for my toolpath boundaries. So let's go to my wireframe tab and click Curve All Edges. If you triple click to select the solid body, we'll click End Selection, and now you can see that my wireframe is now on the part. So we'll click OK. And well, we haven't really established where my top of the part is. So let's go to Planes, and we're going to create a new plane from a solid face. So we'll click on this top, and I want to have my X to the right, and the Z upwards, and that should be fine. Click OK, and we're going to set this to the center of the block, and now click OK. Now rename this to the top side, and we'll go back to our toolpaths. Let's go up to View and click Show Grid. Now I have my grid sitting right on the top of this block, which is perfect. So I'm not going to have my grid on anymore. That was just a guide to show you where the part is located. Let's go to Machine and then Mill and Default. So I want to set up my stock by clicking All Entities right here, and this will now specify where my block is located for our verify purposes. Now I'm going to turn off my stock display. The first thing that I want to do is set up a roughing toolpath to kind of clear out all that material on the angled face. So OptiRough is a really handy tool. So we're going to select that and make sure it's not in 2D operations. It'll only be available in your 3D operations panel. I want to leave 50 thou on the walls, and I'm going to select everything by triple clicking and then End Selection. We'll go to Toolpath Control and include a silhouette boundary. Now this is going to use the part shape as a rectangle to prevent the tool from going outside of the walls, and that just prevents us from machining the walls if we don't need to. We'll go to our tool, and we're going to create a bull nose end mill, 3/8 with a 30 thou nose rad. And I'm not going to do any feeds and speeds. I'll leave that up to you guys. I just want to get the gist of how to set up these tool paths. So let's do rough block. We'll go to cut parameters, and I like to have about 10 thou and 750 thou depth of cut. So we're going to use the whole flute using 10 thou step over at 37 thou, and we're going to use a step up of 10 thou or 10% as well. Our steep and shallow, we're going to set to -1 thou. This prevents us from trying to machine this top section here. Our linking parameters should be good, and we make sure that our planes are set to that, and we can use our coolant. So click OK, and this is going to generate, but meanwhile, I'm going to project some geometry onto some different levels. So I'll click on Levels and Create New. This is going to be my angled pocket, and I'm going to do small pocket, and then I'll set up another one with the middle dome. So my default is going to be angled pocket. So we'll go to toolpaths, and I want to turn this off for now. And I want to go up to my transform and project. So we're going to project this geometry up high enough so that we can see it and use it to specify our boundaries. So I'll set my depth to 2 inch positive. So then that's out of the way. And if I shift click, I just want to make sure that everything is able to be a closed chain, which is not. So let's fix this. Go to wireframe, trim entities, and I'm going to do trim 2 entities, and I'll select those and this. Now if I hold down shift and click, it selects the entire boundary. Now if I go to my levels, it's already on angled pocket, so if I click on my body and then hide using my visibility option, it will hide that angled pocket, which is perfect. So now my next thing is the small pocket. I go to transform and project, and I want to select anything at the top here. Click end selection, and we'll do the same thing 2 inches above, and we should have that small pocket there. And now this we will move by right clicking and go to move and select our small pocket geometry. So now I have 8 entities there, and I want to activate the middle dome and hide the small pocket. And I'm going to select this, all the way around. You have to zoom in. Oops. And then I'll just project that chain up 2 inches. So then I'm able to select for a parallel or raster operation. Now, this is on a different level, so let's move it over. Move to middle dome, select. There we go. Okay. So here's my roughing, and I'm getting an interesting path here that's avoiding everything. So I might want to go into my parameters and change my gap size. So I'm going to change this to when avoiding a boundary and a gap. So then this would regenerate. And now I have a ton of rapid motions, but no redundant motion around the backside of this part. So if I wanted to, I could reduce my linking parameters to minimum distance and then make sure that I have a part clearance of 150 thou, that kind of thing. So then this should reduce some of the movements. And that looks a little bit better. So I'm going to turn off my toolpath. So now that we've roughed it, now I want to semi-finish. So I'm going to go up to my toolpaths and select my contour toolpath. I'm going to triple click my solid. Click end selection, and my containment boundary is now going to be what is on level 2. So I'll pick that and click OK. Now I'm going to create a new tool, and this will be a ball nose end mill, 1/4 inch. And I'm not going to show you any feed rates or speeds, so we're going to call this semi-finish. And we're going to leave 20 thou on our drive stock. Drive stock is what you're going to be machining, and check stock is going to be what you're avoiding. So we'll go to a finish contour, and I want to set my maximum step down to 37.5, just like what we had before. We'll go to one-way climbing milling. We'll go to follow surface and click OK. So now this is going to avoid going into this pocket because we used this boundary. And it's going to machine whatever we need in between. So go to our toolpaths and let's check it out. So this is stepping up 37.5 thou, 10% of the cutter. starting off by taking 3/4 of a full depth. Now we're having a gouge here. Now to avoid the gouge, we might want to go into our linking parameters and make sure that we have some extra clearance here. So minimum distance, maybe we were on full vertical retract, maybe we change that to minimum vertical retract. Now let's check it out. No gouging, perfect. So now we're going to do our semi-finish, and I'm going to turn on my color loop. And this should leave 20 thou on all the surfaces that we've touched. So let's do a raster to clean up these angled faces, maybe even rough out this pocket. So let's rough out the pocket by using Pocket in 3D, and we'll just triple click on the solid, and we'll use our containment boundary from our other level. So we'll go to small pocket and turn that one off, and we'll use that. So I'll click OK, and we're going to use our 1/4 inch spherical end mill. So we'll rough small pocket. And we'll go to our surface parameters. We'll leave 20 thou on the stock. Go to our rough parameters, and I think we'd be okay at 0.1 inches. We'll entry with our helix, and we might want to go to our gap settings and change this to follow surface, and maybe even optimize cut order, or even bottom to top. Let's go bottom to top. Our cut depths, we can specify here if you need to make any changes. And we'll go to cut parameters, or pocket parameters. And I'm going to use parallel spiral and maybe step over 25% because this is a ball nose end mill. I'll turn off thin wall, and that should be it. So now we rough this out, leaving a couple of thou for our 1/8 ball nose end mill that we'll go in afterwards with. Now, there is a toolpath right above that's not actually going to cut anything. So let's go back and change our rough parameters and cut depths. So I might want to say absolute is going to be minimum depth minus 0.1. And then your maximum depth is whatever the surfaces will prevent it from going any further. So I'll click OK, and this only does one pass right down at the bottom. We can also put in maybe some small steps and change our cut parameters. So now we are actually cutting, and there's a little bit more efficiency. So we've roughed out the small pocket, we've roughed out most of these walls and contours. Let's put a radial finish on this guy. So I'm going to triple click on my solid, and then I want to go to toolpath control and set a boundary chain. And that's going to be this guy. I'm going to set this tool contact point, go to my tool, select my 1/4 inch ball nose, finish the boss. Okay, we'll set our cut parameters, and we're going to change the center point to use this circle. Now make sure that you have the point in the middle, not right at the tangent point of the circle. So this is currently at 1.5 inch. I want to do a scallop of 2/10, and maybe I'll go to my cut geometry and add an avoidance region, which would be the top, so then it doesn't cut the top. And I'll click OK. And it looks like I need to go a little bit deeper, as well as why it's doing cutting there. Well, let's find out. Ah, wall stock. Let's change that to 0. And we'll click OK. That looks much better. You can also, instead of using an avoidance face, you can also set this as a boundary. So now I'm going to start paralleling the walls. So I'm going to create a new level, and I want to do Raster Pockets. I want to create some geometry, turn off my toolpaths. This red line here, I'm going to clear the colors. And I'll go up to transform and project. I want to take this line, this line, this line, all the way around. And then I want to take this line because this line goes past where I need it to go. So I'll take this. And we're going to avoid the rads. We'll use a pencil toolpath to clean those up. Okay, so now we'll do an end selection, and we're going to translate these up 2 inches. And we'll click OK, and then we'll go to wireframe and connect these lines. The very end there, and then we'll click that. Now this doesn't look proper, so I think I missed these couple of lines. So I'll go back to my project and add that line and that line. So that looks a little bit better. I'll take my line endpoints and copy those over. And now I have my pockets over top. Now I can change this color so it doesn't interfere with anything by right-clicking and selecting wireframe color. I change it to red, and now I can see that it envelops where I need it to. So let's go to our toolpaths and select raster. I'm going to select my geometry by triple-clicking. We will set this to 0. Select our toolpath control, select boundary chains, and I'm going to change this direction so we go around that way. And I'm going to end the chain and select another one. So then I have 2 separate chains. It says 2. We're going to use tool contact point. We're going to use our 1/4 inch ball nose. Finish. Slanted faces. Our cut parameters we're going to set to 45 degrees and a 2/10 step over using zigzag. Our steep and shallow should be fine. Linking parameters should be alright. I think we're good to go here. So now we've got some raster all the way up these angled faces contacting our tangent points. Now I also have raster over top of that boss. Now I don't want that, so I might want to add another boundary. Go to toolpath control, boundary chains, add, and click that. Now this will prevent it from actually going over top. So it looks like that one's done. So we've got quite a bit finished already. So let's finish up this pocket by using a raster once again. And why don't we just copy finish slanted face. Paste. Change our boundaries to the small pocket. select that. You can also select the geometry on the part. We'll select our tool, and we're going to create a new tool, 1/8 ball. Finish small pocket. And we'll change our cut parameters to 90 degrees. And this will be 2/10 using zigzag. And now we're constrained to the inside of this pocket. Let's do another raster. And we're going to use everything. Toolpath control. We're going to clear that. And we're going to select from our middle dome tool chain. And we'll select that. And then we'll change to the 1/4" ball nose. And this we're going to finish dome. 2/10 step over using a 0 degree zigzag, and that will do that front face. Now this is leaving not much left for finishing, so really the only thing we need to do is flip it around, do this Helix the Bore, and finish these features. But I also want to pencil out these walls so it's really nice. So we're going to use pencil. And we're going to use the whole thing, and then we'll set these to 0. And we'll go to our toolpath control and select our boundary chains. So I'll go to my level, and I want to select angled pocket, and I want to use this whole thing. Now I'll go to my tool, select my 1/4" ball nose. We'll call it pencil rads. And we're going to use a step over of 14 thou. It's not really going to matter. And we're going to set an over thickness of 5 thou. And that should be it. So now it's going to generate a toolpath that will access all of these small features that we need to get into. And it wouldn't normally be able to finish up on their own. So I'm not a fan of these rapid movements up 2 inches each time. So I'll go to my linking parameters and maybe even just do a minimum vertical retract. So that just lifts up and over wherever it needs to without colliding with anything. So let's take a look. So we're going to rough it out using our 3/8 bullnose end mill. And then we will semi-finish, leaving 20 thou with a ball nose. And then we rough out that small pocket, finish up our radial on this guy. And then we parallel or raster across that. And then we switch to a 1/8 ball nose end mill. And sometimes we need to pencil in these rads. And then we have another raster. And then we start to pencil out all these rads to get them nice and matching the tool. So you can see how it takes it a little bit out. And if I turn off color loop, it shows you fairly decently what the surface finish might look like. As you can see there's a little bit of scallops. You can see a little bit of contact discrimination there, but our pencil cleaned up most of the difference between our raster toolpath and anything else. So that should leave you with a fairly decent surface finish. So I'm going to pencil out this guy just to make sure that we've got those rads cleaned up. Sometimes raster won't totally touch the furthest point in that wall, so that's what pencil is really good for. copy this and paste it. We will change our model geometry, boundary chain. And like I said before, you can use the chain on the model if you want. You can select this. If you change it to 3D, it'll select that entire chain on the part rather than having to switch levels. So I'll use my 1/8 ball nose pencil pocket rad. We'll go to our cut parameters and we'll leave this at 0 and see if it gives an error. But we're going to leave the scallop height at 2/10 and click OK. And it looks like it made it. So this is going to drop in and then come down and arc out. So then that cleans that up. We're going to use a different plane. So let's clean up some of this geometry so it's out of the way. We'll go to our toolpaths and turn this off. We'll name this top side. We'll collapse it and then right click and go on machine group and go to new toolpath group and we'll do the bore side. And we'll go to planes and we're going to create a new plane from geometry. So we'll select this line and it says select a second line. Select that guy and the X is in the right position. I want to make sure that I can see everything while I have it in my machine. So I want the spindle coming down like this and I can see this part just like how it is. So let's change this so that the Z is pointed upwards and the X is on the right. And then what we'll do is delete that so that it's right down the center and we can pick it up with an edge finder. So we'll call this bore side. And we'll use this from now on. So we'll go to our toolpaths and we're going to Helix Bore this out. So we'll just use a 2D toolpath using Helix Bore. And we'll go in and select that circle. And we'll use a 1/2 inch flat end mill. We'll go to our cut parameters, and those should be alright. Rough and finish, we'll give it a finish, and those settings look okay. Go to our linking parameters. If I wanted to, and I don't know the actual depth, I'll click this button and select it. Okay, my top of stock is 0. Click OK, and there we are. So now I want to maybe do horizontal area to get some of this material cleaned up. So I'll go there, horizontal area, change this to 0, triple click, and then actually we'll triple click on the avoidance geometry. So we have 71 entities. And then what we'll do is we'll select this one right there. So then the only thing we really have selected is just one entity that's being machined. Everything is avoiding. Our toolpath, control area. We can select the boundary chain if we want. And if you have C-plane on, it's already there. So then this prevents it from dropping into the bore and whatnot. We'll go to our 3/8 bullnose end mill and we'll flatten the mouth of the hole. Go to cut parameters. We're going to do one cut, 45% step over. And that should be it. So it arcs in, and then and it uses our profile, and now it starts to contact. But where it's important is the tangent point of the radius and the radius on the cutter and the radius on the part. So So then this will come around and do the same thing. Tangent point on the radius and on the part and the cutter. So then we clean that up and we're good to go. Now let's do a raster on these radii. We can also do a contour, not a big deal. So if we select avoidance regions, we'll triple click on there and then we'll select these surfaces. Click End Selection. Go to toolpath control, we'll leave that. Go to our tool and we'll use a 1/8 ball nose. And the reason we're using a 1/8 is because this is 1/10,000th under 1/4 inch. So then it has a problem calculating with our 1/4 inch ball nose. So we might be able to sphere or pencil out those sections there if we needed to, if you wanted to do it that way. So we'll finish the rads. Go to our cut parameters, set that to 0, 2/10, and that should be it. So now it arcs in and starts paralleling or rastering in there. And the last thing that we need to do is put on our chamfer. So we'll use Radial. We'll select everything. And then we'll pick just our chamfer pieces as our machining region. We'll go to our tool, we'll select our 1/4 inch ball nose. Go to our cut parameters and set our center point by using either of these arcs. Just make sure it uses the center point at the center of the circle. And 2/10. Click OK. And there you have your chamfer. So let's do a full verify. So we'll rough out our stock. Then we'll semi-finish to 20 thou. Then we'll rough out the pocket and then finish our boss. Raster out our angled faces. There's a little bit of gouging here, so we might need to control that. But it doesn't leave any marks with our finish. So then we'll finish up that with a 1/8 ball nose. As you can see, it took out the gouging. There shouldn't be any gouging, but that might be because of how we established our boundaries. So this is going to raster out that top section. And it even puts in the rad there. So now we should be penciling out our rads so we get better finish. And now we pencil out the rads in the corners here. And now we start on our Helix Bore. So I'm going to turn off my wireframe. And we'll flatten that out. You can see how it's come up to the tangent point of those radii. We're going to finish those rads. And then the last thing is finish our chamfer. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped.